Good evening. I'm Janice Arnold-Jones. I'm a candidate for Congress in the 1st Congressional District in New Mexico. I'm sure that many of you just completed watching the Democratic debate for this district, and I wanted to make sure that you had an idea of what I was thinking. It was certainly an interesting debate, typified by what I believe a lack of answering the questions. So let's begin. The first question was about how did you work across the aisles? One of the things that I will bring to Congress and also to New Mexico is independent leadership. You know, when I was in the New Mexico State Legislature, it was truly a no-brainer that we had a problem with transparency, we had a problem with ethics, and at the end of the day, it was citizens and myself that took a webcam to the legislature to make a massive change in how we were doing business. But that was just the first part. In order to get things done, we have to work and focus on the problems. One of the things that I really enjoyed working on was a bill dealing with first responders, so that across the state, the systems worked so that when you dialed 911, they could find you and they could get to you. Now, the second question of the evening was about budget and taxes. And again, the Democrats talked about all kinds of things, but failed on several key issues. The first is debt and deficit and balancing the budget. We are in trouble. Under the current administration, this year, we're expecting to expend, that is spending, writing checks for $3.6 trillion, but we only hope, and I do mean hope, that we're going to bring in $2.3 trillion. At some point, we have got to stand up and make the hard choices. And the question in this case was, what specific recommendation or act would you take to start cutting? So here's a simple one. The EPA is extremely redundant with other existing agencies. So a first cut, eliminate all activities by the EPA that are duplicated or performed by other existing agencies. The third question was really interesting. It was about fresh ideas, and Senator Eric Griego did go on and on about infrastructure. And I just had to chuckle, because for years I have been talking about improving the communication connectivity to overcome our geography, preserve our environment, enable economic activity in the state of New Mexico, and improve our education. Eric, welcome to the discussion, because we certainly need this. You know, and communication does go beyond roads and connectivity, but this is one of the key fresh ideas. And one of the other things as a fresh idea, the reason that we struggle in New Mexico with our economy truly is driven by the federal government. So here's another fresh idea for you. Let's impose, and I will be glad to introduce that legislation, let's impose time limits for the permitting process by the federal government. It's kind of like the thought of justice delayed is justice denied. Business permits delayed is businesses dead. We cannot stand that anymore. We have to fix it. There is a fresh idea. The next question had to do with Obamacare and young people. And I agree that a lot of people, and my family included, we have two young children, not young, one is 29, so he doesn't count anymore, but one is under 26. And yes, Robert, I love you. But I'm really glad that we now are able to keep our children on our insurance plans a little bit longer. But the truth is, what this discussion devolved into was, were we really going to have Medicare or not? Are we going to have insurance or not? And that really focused on insurance. And by the time I was finished, listening to the discussion, I kept thinking, my goodness, everything I hear today is that anybody on Medicare trying to get a new doctor is literally out of luck, because the doctors are saying this program, this unconstitutional law is so repressive, so onerous, that I can no longer afford to provide care to people on Medicare. And it's going to get worse unless this bill is either repealed or our Supreme Court rules that it is unconstitutional. The next question was really interesting. It was a question on the Real ID Act. And I do confess, I have been called a geek on more than one occasion. But the Real ID Act is a little bit about that, but it was really about making our country safe. And of course, my opponents on the other side decided to talk about immigration. But let's talk about the key element about the Real ID Act and the problem with New Mexico. New Mexico is one of only 2 states that gives an official government document to individuals who have come into our country illegally. And the moment that we hand them that official driver's license, they can go anywhere in the country and literally hide out, literally threatening the security of not only our state, but our country. We have got to get this fixed. The next question was very interesting. It was about how will a member of Congress improve education? And I'm not really sure that it is Congress's role to improve education. In my years as a parent, it was very clear that it was mostly my responsibility to make sure that my children were doing what they were supposed to do and to provide the opportunities for them. And yes, I worked too. But what can we do to improve graduation rates? Well, let's start with one of the simple things. What if we reviewed and eliminated the Department of Education at the federal level and returned those funds to the states to let them make their own decisions? The last question dealt with probably the thing closest to my heart, and that was a question about what can a brand new member of Congress do to help Los Alamos National Laboratories. Most of you know that I was fortunate enough to be a contractor for Sandia National Labs, and I am a 23-year Navy wife, so I have a little perspective here. But what we need to do is to send a member to Congress who truly understands the current mission, to talk about changing the mission for tech transfer for jobs in the state of New Mexico is not the mission of our labs. But New Mexico and New Mexicans provide something very unique and very special to both laboratories, and it is critical to the national defense and the deterrence component of our defense. And we're the only ones in the nation who do this, and we need to tell that story. I'm ready to tell that story in detail. It has been a pleasure to bring this perspective on the internet. It's our first try at it. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you would like more information about my campaign, please go to www.janice2012.us. That's janice2012.us. We do have a new phone number, 505-797-8030. I would love to hear from you. Janice Arnold-Jones, New Mexico, Congressional District 1. I need your vote.